Then we have Michelle Vallejo from Texas, who's going to talk with us. So I'm going to just let Leader Sykes jump in herself so she has a little time to talk with us. Hello.
Thank you. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for giving me a little bit of grace to do this meeting in the car. I am in between events. It is busy time, as you all know. So if I can't hear you for a second or ask you to repeat something, thank you in advance for your understanding. Again, my name is Amelia Sykes. I am currently the state representative. We are driving through my district right now and running for Congress as the Democratic nominee in the 13th Congressional District. Ohio 13 is a brand new district. It is a mashup of 5 congressional seats into one, but it has been designated as the seat that Tim Ryan is retiring from as he is running for United States Congress, or excuse me, United States Senate. This district is one that Biden won by a little over 2.5 points, and our United States Senator Sherrod Brown has won these precincts by 15 points. So the votes are there. We just have to go get them. And that is what our campaign has been doing since we launched back in January. So a little bit about me. I have been serving in the legislature for almost 8 years now, and I was certainly a very reluctant elected official. Both of my parents served in Akron City Council in the state legislature, and I saw exactly what being elected official looked like. And I decided there was another way for me to serve without having to go through the trials and tribulations of being elected. But as you know, the adage, if you want to make God laugh, you make your own plans. And I made my own plans to be a dancer for Alvin Ailey. And clearly there was a different path for me. And so after law school and receiving a public health master's in public health degree, I moved back home to Ohio and decided to run for office. And what pushed me to run for office was seeing that my dad was term limited at the time from the legislature. There were folks saying that they wanted to represent this community, but I thought they were good people, but they would not serve the community the way that it deserved to be served. This is the place that raised me, and my friends and my family truly deserve someone who is going to put them first in all of their decisions. And that's why I decided to run for office. And so that was 8 years ago. I am rounding out my final term and have been very successful in the legislature, even though we've had super minority status as Democrats. I was the minority leader for 3 years, but really proud of the work that we have done. In my first year that I was the minority leader, we passed more bipartisan bills that year than we had in the previous 4 years combined. And we were able to increase wages, decrease taxes, help our environment. And in the next term, we were able to finally tackle our school funding formula that had been deemed unconstitutional for several decades. So I'm looking forward to bringing that spirit of hard work and bipartisanship, but also standing in my own values and being very clear about my community and what they sent me to do as a member of Congress. I am working very hard every day, as you can see me now, going from one corner of the district to the other, making sure I get to meet as many people as I can and encouraging folks to get out to vote, because quite frankly, this election is a lot about our freedoms. It's about our ability to live in a democracy, to have the choice to make decisions about our body, and to live in a community safe from violence, where our environment is clean and safe. And it's all of those things I hear a lot about from my community. So with that, I am going to very briefly talk a bit about the other side. My opponent is, much like many of the others you'll hear, a MAGA extremist who does not believe in abortion rights, even in the case of rape, incest, or abuse. My opponent wants to arm teachers in schools, was complaining and lamenting the fact that we did not get rid of the Affordable Care Act, which is especially problematic for this district because Ohio 13's #1 employer is healthcare. And without the Affordable Care Act, not only would people's health and wellness suffer, but our local economy would be devastated. And while she's advocating for joblessness and unemployment and layoffs, I am working every day to figure out how we can put more money in people's pockets, get them the jobs that they need so they can live the life that they want here. So my polling has gone very well. I've been in the lead from the beginning. We have expanded that lead, and the gift and the curse of being a strong candidate that polls well is Republicans spend more money. So at this point, there's about $9 million in dark money in this race, and there's still more to come. But we are holding our own, and thankfully, because of groups like you who are putting those grassroots grassroots efforts, not only financially, but through your postcards and other efforts to reach out to voters. We are still up. We continue to stay up, but we won't be there unless we get the support we need for these final 23 days. So again, thank you, Lisa. Thank you to everyone from Swing Left for the opportunity, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Very fast, very clear, very organized, and very helpful. Thank you. So Erin is going to curate a few questions. If you have some, please put them in the chat or do the raised hand thing on the bottom of your screen.
Great. Thank you, Leader Sykes, for joining us. And again, if you have a question, please feel free to put it in the chat. We have one right now. So this is from Jim. When you say you are up, can you be more specific?
Up by 5.
Up by 5. Yes. Awesome. Great. And can you talk a little bit about the climate in Ohio for those of us who, were mainly from the DC area? How pervasive is sort of the MAGA anti-democracy movement, and what can you do to sort of counter that?
So we have a lot of very dedicated people who are very thinking about our democracy, thinking about protecting our democracy and voting rights. I just left a Canvas rally or Canvas kickoff with Tim Ryan, with a very, very motivated group of people. He said it felt like the weekend before the election, not 3 weeks out. And if that's any testament to what people are feeling, it was absolutely true. Folks are motivated. The Dobbs decision helped motivate women. Right after we saw a lot of rallies, and then we put people to work and we did canvases for choice. And now next week, we'll actually do our actually the 29th get out to vote rally, row your vote. So we're encouraging women to go and vote early to make sure that they are protecting their rights and their freedom. But I am, as the Akron Beacon Journal reported earlier this week, running against one of the election deniers. And many people say there's only one question that I'm asking: did you believe that the election was stolen, yes or no? And that determines who they're going to vote for. So people are very much involved in the conversation of democracy. It's not the only thing that people care about. They are very concerned about the inflation, the cost of goods and services, and gas and groceries. And we're certainly making sure we're talking about those issues. The Dobbs decision is incredibly important as well. And public safety becomes top of mind on folks as well.
Great. And a couple of questions have come in. What is your sort of need? What would you spend the money on that we are raising for you?
So a couple of things. We are being very significantly outspent, not very significantly. We are getting some outside help on TV, but as you know, candidate funds go much further than outside groups. So Darker Money has about $9 million, and I'm sure there's more to come. But right now, we are working very hard to get people on the ground to meet people where they are. One thing that we have been able to do, which was very helpful, was send out absentee ballot request forms to voters across the district. And that was very helpful in allowing Summit County, which is where I'm from, to have the highest amount of growth in terms of absentee ballot requests throughout the state. So we're very proud of that. And what we know in Ohio is most of the people who vote early tend to vote Democrat. So we are banking a lot of votes early. So what we will need to do is make sure we're getting those folks who requested the absentee ballot to turn their ballot in, as well as get all the other folks who would be likely to vote for me and other Democrats out to vote in these last 3 weeks.
Great. Okay, I think we have time for one more question. This is from Jerry. How are you recruiting / motivating Black males to vote who did not vote in 2020?
That's a very good question. And what we've done from the beginning of the campaign is just meet people where they are, communicate with folks, particularly Black men, about why this election is important and why Republicans, in fact, do not care about their lives or their livelihoods. We've also engaged Black leadership, including Black pastors, historically Black organizations like the NAACP and fraternities, the Masons, to make sure that they are reaching out to their friends and the members in their organizations and letting them know what's going on in these elections. So part of what we're doing with our Souls to the Polls, we have Souls, S-O-U-L-S, Souls, which you know is historically for church groups, but we also have Souls, S-O-L-E-S, to the polls, where we're going to engage some non-faith groups to get to the polls, vote early, so we can again bank those votes and make sure people understand how important it is to vote for not only me, but other folks who actually have their interest at heart.
I think it's a good message to keep in mind because a lot of us are canvassing. We're knocking on doors, and we do, knock on doors of a lot of Black voters' houses. And so I think that's important to keep in mind for those of us who are out there in the field, as I was yesterday in Pennsylvania. Jim has a question.
Yes, so I'm a retired public health physician. So I'm interested to know how your public health background and education has helped you as a legislator and a candidate. Over.
Well, one, it helps a lot because our number one industry here is healthcare. We have a major hospital system employs more people in Summit County than anyone in the county. And then if you go south in the Stark County part of the district, a healthcare organization also is the number one employer. And so I have worked with healthcare organizations for my entire term in the legislature on Medicaid reimbursements, Medicare reimbursement conversations. I know that's more federal, but still part of the conversation. Infant mortality, maternal health, you name it. We just did a pretty significant investment into a food pharmacy, spelled Pharmacy, to work with the food banks to ensure that there is healthy produce, and doctors and healthcare providers can write prescriptions for that produce, and they can get it at the hospital without having to feel ashamed or uncomfortable getting food from a food bank. I've worked very closely with these different organizations to, one, make sure that they are being reimbursed and they have the resources so that they can continue to employ people and provide a level of service. But I've been especially excited about the health equity work we've been able to do that has been helping to reduce our infant mortality numbers. This year was the first year in a very long time where we've seen the numbers of infant mortality reduce in Ohio. And that's been work that has started since I've been in legislature. As you know, the infant mortality numbers don't change in a cycle or a year or two. And so the continued investment and sustained financial resources into communities that are closest to the people who need it the most have started to show some changes, and we're starting to reverse that trend. And so we're going to continue that work. And that's why it's very important for me to continue this work in the United States Congress, because we have seen some very meaningful positive steps, and we can do even more.
Okay, and quick question, when you say healthcare is the main employer, you mean in your district or statewide?
In the district.
In the district, got it. Okay, actually, we have time for one quick one, which I think is kind of a cute question from, we have a member who is a former ballet dancer, and she wants to know, how has your background in dance impacted your political career?
Well, in a lot of ways. So a couple of quick things. So my dance teacher, I went to a magnet arts high school, invited me back to talk to the students and parents as their enrollment numbers were decreasing. And she said, talk about why you went through dance, but you didn't pursue a career in dance, but how did it help you? And so some of it, especially for me, is just being able to stand up in front of people and just show yourself and show who you are, that vulnerability. And if you've ever been on the stage and you were performing something that you maybe weren't quite confident in, but you had to do it anyway, it makes giving a speech all that much easier. So that's an incredibly helpful thing too. But one other part about being a dancer that's been helpful is also even just the teachers that I had. My most significant piece of legislation was a bill around protecting victims of dating violence. And my dance teacher from high school, who had taken a new career path into victims assistance, came every single time that bill came up. She came to every hearing, she testified every year was up. And really, I know that our relationship and how close we were because she was my dance instructor has made her, not only with her work, but our relationship so dedicated to that bill. And so it's been in law for about 3 years now, something that has been protecting victims of violence for about 3.5 years. And I really appreciate those relationships that I built. Of course, the confidence, and then just being able to get in front of people and express yourself and be vulnerable helps people see my sincerity and really why I do this work, no matter how difficult it may be.
Wonderful. Well, you're getting lots of love in the chat, just so you know. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us, Leader Sykes. Go, go, go. We are behind you. We are on your team from the DMV here in DC area.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming. So we are going to now pivot to hear from another candidate running from for the House, who we are supporting with great enthusiasm, Michelle Vallejo from Texas. Are you here, Representative? Let's see, are you here?
I'm here.
Oh, good. Jump in.
Hi, everybody. It's so great to be meeting with y'all today. Just like Representative Sykes has been on the run here in Texas 15, it's just been go, go, go. It's amazing because I'm a first-time candidate. I grew up here in the district, right on the frontera, Texas 15 geographically, just for everybody to know. It's from McAllen, Texas, right on the South Texas-Mexico border up to right outside of San Antonio. So I grew up here. I come from a family, a big family, a very, very big family, which is good because we got a lot of votes. We got a lot of voters there, of immigrants, of people who immigrated here from Mexico and set deep roots in our community. My parents started a flea market right around the time I was 6 or 7 years old. Here they're called pulgas. Mine in particular is Pulga Los Portales. So I'll take the opportunity to extend an open invitation for everybody to come join us and come visit us at the flea market. It's a great time. It's so fun. I'm so blessed that I get to visit the flea market still while I'm on the campaign trail, because like most immigrant families, well, we used to live above our business, now we live across the street. So we're making on moves, but we're staying so close to our community. And it's truly been so beautiful to see, coming from my roots in the community, my work at the flea market, which I now co-own and manage with my dad, and building that energy that we've had within our family, within the hardworking families that we've worked with now for about a quarter century, and claiming our political power. So Texas 15 is the #1 most competitive congressional seat in the state of Texas, easily top 5, if not top 10 most competitive nationwide to hold the House majority. And right now the Latino vote is very powerful. And that's where I lead. I am leading when it comes to Latinos in the district. I'm leading when it comes to voters, in particular here in Hidalgo County, which is about 60% historically of the voter turnout in the district. There has been manipulation of our district through gerrymandering, to where our district used to be a strong Democratic district. It got cut up to where it went from being a D+2 to an R+3. So even coming in, we knew it was going to be extremely competitive. But due to that redistricting, our would have been incumbent representative Vicente Gonzalez did get drawn out, leaving it an open seat race. We knew that my opponent, who's a pretty radical right Republican Trumper, it's so ridiculous when I introduce this race to people and I tell them I'm running against a Trump endorsed Latina. And you would imagine that would be an oxymoron at some point. But unfortunately, the reality we're living in is that these efforts of divisiveness and folks who just want to drive issues as wedge issues in communities are unfortunately coming into some places of power and some positions of power. But I know that my community here in South Texas is putting up as big of a fight as we need to hold those efforts back, because they're malicious. They don't serve us at all. And my opponent, whose name is Monica de la Cruz, did run last election cycle. And while she lost by about 6,500 votes, the very next day she was at the courthouse trying to call press and trying to say that the election was stolen. And so we know that we have an election denier here in our hands. And while I am a first-time candidate, and I did jump in within about 2 or 3 weeks of making that decision of running with the full support of my family and my community, I made it through a 6-part primary and then a runoff and then a recount where I ended up 35 votes up. So we've been able to gain experience and be able to canvass votes. So on election night, I ended up 23 votes up, but with our canvassing period, we ended up getting people's rejected ballots counted and bumped that up to 35. So we even know how to put up a fight against these efforts to disenfranchise voters, to make it harder for voters in Texas to vote. And unfortunately, in September, there were some laws that came into place that made it even harder for Texans to vote. Some alarming numbers just to share with everybody, so y'all get a little sense of what we're running up against here, is that 40% of our mail-in ballots were rejected during the primary election. That, I would argue, is criminal. And that's what we're fighting for here. We really are fighting to protect and preserve our democracy. And right now, the community is excited and engaged, but extremely infuriated. Not just because we feel and we have felt and we know the disenfranchising efforts of our power, of our political power and our voice, but also the fact that here in Texas, we have been living in a post-Roe reality even before the Dobbs decision came out. And it is alarming. And just yesterday, we had an event. It was a Women's for Bethel event. And I just want to share with everyone, I think Bethel's doing really well in South Texas. He's here, he's present, people are excited, and we have all the hope, and we're doing everything we need to also make sure that we get the right governor in office here in Texas. But there was a women's event for Bethel yesterday, and there was a prosecutor who is pretty shy outside of the courtroom and doesn't really like to get involved politically, but she felt so inclined that she had to share some of the cases that she was prosecuting so that people understand that the reality is that there are 10, 11-year-old girls who are victims of rape and incest that are going through a very scary time right now, where these children don't even realize that they've been victims and they don't have any protection under the law in order to make the right and safe decisions for them. And this is what we're dealing with. And while there is, just like in Emilia Sykes' race, a lot of dark money coming in. My opponent and her supporters have pretty much spent about $2.5 million against me on TV, and in efforts of confusing our community, in efforts of keeping our voters disinformed about, or misinformed also, about what issues are at stake and what their power really and truly is here in this election cycle. And right now, what's really important for us is to keep our program running. We have the most robust field program that I think this district has ever seen for this race. And I'm so excited and proud of that, because we have engaged so many young voters. We have engaged so many Spanish dominant voters and families from mixed status homes who have felt scared of even, for example, signing the census survey. So there's been a lot of fear, and there's been a lot of efforts for people to stay quiet and hidden. And I really feel excited about my candidacy and my campaign and my race, because I've doubled down on who I am, where I come from, representing my home with pride and dignity, because I take that very seriously. And I already feel that I'm representing my home at the national stage, for people to see that there are people in South Texas that are ready to fight and are ready to put up a challenge against these nasty efforts that are creeping in nationwide to try to dismantle our amazing government and democracy and every single right that we have fought for generations that need to stay in place. But what I reassure people every time they tell me that they feel hopeless is that I firmly believe that our democracy is only as strong as how hard we're willing to fight for it. And we are fighting for our lives. And so I am so grateful to have all of you here, because I know that we are not in the trenches alone. I have received quite a bit of money from y'all, and I'm so, so grateful for all of that energy, all of that support and encouragement, because I know exactly where that money goes. And it goes to our organizers on the ground having hard conversations about the issues. So, for example, we are talking to people about women's right to choose. We're talking about healthcare being a fundamental human right, and abortion care falling under that umbrella of rights that we need to stand by. And culturally, most people will say, well, Latinos in South Texas are conservative. And I can say, I did grow up in a conservative household. I just came from a church earlier, from a blessing, and things that we practice growing up with our grandparents and our parents. But we also stand by protecting our families and making sure that we have everything we need to move forward. And while we are having these conversations, things are shifting. The culture is changing to where there's less shame for women to seek healthcare and to have reproductive care. And what's amazing is that last night I had a Men for Michelle Vallejo event And we had a conversation about needing them to stand up with us, with women, and in order to defend our rights, because this is something that is going to affect us all. We're also having conversations with people about the change that we need when it comes to immigration policy, and the fact that right now nothing is working when it comes to the policies that we have in place. We need to make sure that we have investments in our ports of entry for both public and private use. We need to make sure that our immigration courts and judges are well paid, resourced, and we have what we need to be able to process people humanely when they're seeking asylum and refuge. And we need a pathway to citizenship for the 11 to 12 million people who are living in this country, have been paying taxes, have been trying to engage as much as possible with our society and with our communities, but have been left disenfranchised. And in particular, I'm thinking about DACA students, because I'll get calls from so many of our students here in the district telling me, Michelle, I'm supporting you. I can't vote for you, but I want to know and I want to believe that there's a chance for me to have citizenship in this country, to be able to one day make my voice count, and to be able to be fully engaged and have every opportunity that I know I deserve. And so it's been a beautiful experience, because this campaign really is rooted in South Texas, fighting for South Texas. And I really do want to give the message to everyone that there is a lot of hope here in the frontera. While you might see in headlines that there's this conservative white right-wing movement, those are the efforts of people who are trying to disenfranchise the Latino vote, in particular here in the border, because Latinos are not voting for people who are just ready to throw them under the rug, which we know opponents and candidates like mine are ready to do. And something that is very clear is that she's not here to serve our community. She has denied showing up to a debate for about 60 days now. She won't show up to even friendly candidate forums. And she has avoided talking now to even local press, which is a very clear message to our community that this person does not respect us and is ready to do the bidding of those who are her largest donors. And that's why I'm staying committed, and I'm staying accountable to the people of South Texas. I'm not receiving any PAC checks or any private PACs or corporation dollars. I'm staying committed to the people, and efforts like these, connecting with people across the country to build more awareness and build on our grassroots efforts, really goes a long way for Texas 15. So thank you everybody for being in the trenches with us, for believing in Texas 15, believing in me. And I'm really excited to carry this past the finish line November 8th. And I'll have all of y'all to thank for that as well.
Thank you so much, Michelle. My name is Aaron Hamburger. I am the membership coordinator here at 31st Street and the question fielder. We had a couple of questions that came up in the chat. I think we have time for maybe one or two. And one question is, because these sort of mail-in ballots have been rejected, and it seems like there's this concerted effort, what can you do in the general election to help reduce the number of votes that are rejected?
So immediately we have started taking data down of those who called us, which was so heartbreaking, you know, the day after mail-in ballots were due, that they were still waiting for their ballot. You know, there were quite a few laws that came into play that really changed the way that people vote, in particular our community that is not only immunocompromised, but also has special needs, so they can't necessarily leave their homes to go vote, and definitely our community that is 65 and older. And so what we've done is we've kept contact with those people who we know might have not been able to vote during the primary. And we have organizers that are making sure that they are informed, they know what they need. And in particular, there's one little trick that came into play, and it was a requirement for people to put their voter ID and either their driver's license number or their passport number, whichever they registered with. And so these are things that we've been informing, we've been communicating, and we have partners on the ground. For example, the first group that endorsed me or actually nominated me is a sister organization to the United Farm Workers Union, has been working here for about 3 decades now. And they have also been working on making sure that these voters in our district who do traditionally vote by mail have every bit of information they need. But also we've been pushing even more to encourage people to show up in person. And so we even have people who are helping folks get there, like physically go pick them up. And that's something else that I learned. You can't just ask people to vote for you. You got to kind of drag them to the polls and make sure that they are very, very, excited and motivated to come out. So that has been one of our biggest keys, like making sure our voters are motivated and understand why it matters so much to them.
Great. Okay, we have time for one more question. So by the way, in the chat, people are saying, oh, maybe organize vans to polls. Sounds like you're doing that. Does Texas allow ballot curing? Perhaps that's something we could help with, something to keep in mind. But I think the main question to ask is, we've been hearing so much about Democrats losing Hispanic, Latino support. Can you comment on that and any sort of advice or thoughts on how we can get out of that bind?
Right. So I'm so excited to show our numbers right after election night, because we're going to be able to put a direct counter to that false narrative. We did see some movement in the previous election cycles, but when it comes to Texas 15, when it comes to the Latino vote, I know that I am carrying it in a big way. And we've got data for that right now, where we got a tracker poll that just came in, and we are seeing a lot of movement in the positive direction here in particular in the district. And also, this is something surprising, and we're hopefully going to be sharing more about this, is that the positive movement for Biden's approval ratings as well amongst Latinos. So there is something going on. And I think that we're going to be a prime example of the fact that Latinos vote for people who they feel connected to and who they feel is communicating to them, and that feel that they are that they could trust, right? And I think that what has happened is that there's been a lot of money being poured into districts like mine to try to claim the Latino vote. But the more and more that our community sees how this money is being spent. So for example, there are ads being played against me that are depicting our home as if it's a place of chaos, as if it's getting run over by cartel. And it's pretty much the way I describe it is, it kind of looks like the promo or the commercial to the next season of Narcos on Netflix. Like, it's that ridiculous. And I would argue that it's racist and it doesn't serve our community at all. And we could see right through that. I do want to point out one more thing, and it's in particular with law enforcement and Border Patrol support. And when Trump was in office and some Republicans that are just playing his playbook and trying to be, little Trump Juniors, tried to claim that they stand by the side of law enforcement and Border Patrol, what's been happening here in Texas, and in particular because of the political games that Governor Abbott is playing with people's lives and relocating tens of thousands of our National Guard soldiers to the frontera, to the border, to claim this Operation Lone Star program and project because we don't have what we need from DC to face the challenges we are seeing. And this is going to be a little hard to share, and I'm sorry, but it's the reality. But we've lost about 10 of our soldiers, about 5 of them due to suicide because of these games, because of breaking families apart, forcing our soldiers to relocate within a 72-hour notice with no goal in mind, with them not getting paid in time, with them having to sacrifice their civilian life, their day-to-day jobs. And this is something that people are waking up to. So no longer do the Republicans have this claim to stand by law enforcement, and we're crippling down at that because it's not the truth. And Democrats truly are in the fight for the people. And here in Texas, I saw a message or a question earlier is, yes, we are pushing for the entire Democratic slate. We are pushing for Beto. We're pushing for Rochelle Garza for Attorney General. We're pushing for Jay Clayburgh. We're pushing for the entire state Democratic ticket. And we feel very confident. We know this. And if you are paying attention to Texas, this is why the only debate between Abbott and Beto happened here in this district, here in Texas 15, in Hidalgo County, where I'm from and where our largest voting block is, because the pathway to winning and to flipping Texas blue is through Texas 15.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We're very inspired. We are behind you. So go get them. And we are throwing whatever weight we can behind you and our best wishes as well. And I'm now going to pass the mic over to Lisa.
We really appreciate your being here with us. Thank you. Okay, well, two amazing candidates, amazing women. Very glad that they came and talked to us. And thank you so much for the people donating. I see lots of donations commenting in the chat, so that's wonderful. Erin has put the donation link in the chat a few times. I just donated. It took me less than a minute. It's very easy to do, and then you can just come back to the Zoom. We're going to turn now to canvassing, which is the
No, we turn to Mary. Mary next.
oh, sorry, Mary.
And me.
And you, sorry.
Go, Mary.
Hi, I'm Mary Shelton Pence. I'm I'll say, the leader of many of the fundraising efforts on 31st Street. That is the making the wheels turn, not picking the candidates. That's Jim's bailiwick. And I'm going to share my screen right now. And I'd like to read you something that was published in Robert Hubble earlier this month. And here's what he said. He said, polls are not reality. The efforts that we engage in during the coming month, during these last weeks, are not reality. Everything is in flux, which means that the future is ours to shape. Let's make the polls go up by ignoring the polls and focusing on the hard work of convincing voters that Democrats offer a positive vision for Americans that will be carried out by candidates worthy of high offices of public trust. Over time, that combination will prevail over a party that exists only to perpetuate power and influence. So, Robert Hubble exhorts us, stay the course, keep the faith, and leave nothing to chance. So these two women and the third woman candidate who was not able to be with us tonight are articulate fighters. They are the candidates worthy of high offices of public trust that Robert Hubble references. And I want to urge you to think about your part of staying the course, keeping the faith, and leaving nothing to chance. And I know you can tell where I'm going. This is the last chance to make a strategic contribution selected and supported by 31st Street in this campaign cycle. This slate of 3 women running from the U.S. House for the U.S. House, carefully selected by our strategist. Our goal is to raise $10,000 for each of these candidates tonight, and probably in one more newsletter that'll go out from Lisa. So for my husband and myself, that has meant contributing $2,500 to this slate. And like some others who have been putting messages in the chat, my husband and I bought Jim's exhortation to contribute early because early money is the most effective. But notwithstanding that, this last chance really inspires me. So I invite you to stretch and to make your own contribution and to help us make our goal of 10,000 more to help these inspiring women candidates win on November 8th. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. Thanks, Mary, and get to what I usually do earlier. Give you a little sense. Try to do it fairly expeditiously about where I think we are and why we're doing what we're doing. So, starting with a metaphor, here's where we are. We're at this tipping point. So, it's up to us to figure out which way we're going to go. Not just us, of course. Mary said polls are not reality, but I can't help but talk about polls. And here's where we are today as of 5:38, and it's actually tightened up. It's worse than what it was a month ago. Notably, Pennsylvania and for Senate, particularly, Pennsylvania and Arizona are looking quite good. Georgia, I think, is looking actually still reasonably good and moving in our direction. Ohio remains a coin toss. And we've slipped some in Wisconsin and North Carolina and Nevada, which would be a loss for us. But we're still hanging in with all of those races. But here's the key point. If we flip Pennsylvania, which we really ought to be able to do, and that's what our main efforts are going to be going on in terms of canvassing, for example. And if we hold the Georgia seat, it's really hard to see that we would lose control of the Senate. We might lose Nevada, but it's hard to see what else we might lose. So I still think there's a really good chance that we'll keep the Senate. But it does make Fetterman like our #1 priority, particularly in terms of canvassing, even though raising money for him, he's got a huge amount of money still. So there he is, our guy. Now, what's happened is that the usual thing, and I don't know why we are a little better prepared for this, but Republican super PACs, as you heard mentioned by Leader Sykes, they've weighed in a lot of places and they've got a lot more money than our super PACs. And they're doing their attack ads, particularly scary crime ads, but other kinds of things. And they've gotten some traction apparently in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's what's been hurting us. I will say that I do look at a lot of ads most every day, and the Democrats are mounting some really good responses and getting out ahead of these issues to some extent, especially on abortion, or what I would call abortion plus, the slippery slope and other things. But here's also this point, and reason why it's so important to be contributing to these House races specifically. Again, Leader Sykes mentioned this. The law requires that direct campaigns, federal campaigns, get the lowest possible rate that broadcast TV provides. And the super PACs don't get that. Sometimes they have to pay 4, 5, 6 times as much for broadcast TV. And that's why, even why at this late point in the cycle, when there's sort of a battle of TV going on, unfortunately, I do think it makes sense for us to be supporting these races. Although in the case of Michelle Vallejo, we saw that most of her money's going into on the ground organizing. So bless her heart, and more than that. That sounds great. So just one piece of, you could say I cherry picked this, not really that much, but Navigator does really good polling, national polling in my view. But in a national poll not that long ago, the Democrats, in terms of preference, when people think about the US Senate particularly, they are giving us the edge, including independents. All right, so now turning to the House, this is how 538 racks it up. And I have to say that when I look at the specific races, I have a hard time understanding why they're judging these races in a particular way, the ones that I know, better and worse. But I think this is probably a good assessment as any, that there's a 29% chance that we can win. Well, okay, 29% is still a substantial number if we really try to weigh in, which we have been, and thanks to you. I will also say that, as I said in the previous presentation a month ago, it's very possible that much of the polling is actually underestimating the Democratic vote. They have to try to model whether or not who they think is going to vote and whether you can talk to, and then whether or not they're actually going to vote, as well as how they say they're going to vote. And this is just one piece of data that pretty much relates to that. It's very fragmentary, but I couldn't help resist showing it to you, which is that if you look in Pennsylvania at the mail-in ballot requests this year versus 2020, and recall 2020 was the COVID year. So of course, there's a lot more requests. But in terms of proportions, the Democrats have actually requested more ballots this year for mail-in ballots. Doesn't mean that more of them will vote or will vote otherwise, but ordinarily it's older people that are more likely to request mail-in ballots, and they tend to, unfortunately, to vote Republican. So this is maybe a glimmer of positive optimism. All right, so here's where we are on what we funded for these House candidates. And it's getting close to $400,000. We just started like a few weeks ago, other than Chris DeLuzio, this great, he's in Pennsylvania 13, I think it is, 17. Anyway, he's the one in open seat, kind of Lamb's district. We started early with that one. And we have changed this over time as we've gotten more data and looked at how much people were raising and what their polling is and so forth. And also wanted to kind of narrow it down. So we have raised a lot of money for Michelle. That's enough to move the needle. That can pay for a lot of on the ground organizing. So thanks to you and your people you've reached out to for that. We more recently added Yadira Caraveo in Colorado, as well as Leader Sykes. And so they're just getting started. And that's one reason we think the additional 10,000 for each one of them would make a significant difference. Okay, but here's the point also, just to bear in mind, and I don't want to make it sound like I'm kind of a loser or something here, but even if we lose control of the House, it actually pays us to lose by less. So every single House race is still very precious. And there are two reasons for that, which is that there's still a few remaining moderate Republicans that might actually work constructively on something.
No, we kicked them all out in the primaries.
Okay. But also then we're in a better setup to regain control in 2024. So whatever, I really think I've been arguing for the House for some number of weeks and months now. And I think other people that I see on the internet and I connect with are making that argument as well. All right, now we're going to switch to canvassing, which is now becoming our major priority, of course. And so I just want to tell you that this weekend in Pennsylvania, we had 14 people in Harrisburg. We have 2 people even in Allegheny County now, which is DeLuzio's district. And it could be, it's possible that Julie Greenberg may call in to tell us how things are going there. And that's for the whole weekend. We have 4 people in Allentown, the other part of the state, for the weekend in Wild's district. And we even have 1 person out today in Carlisle. So we're really trying to rev up our Pennsylvania canvassing. And here are these wonderful people, some of whom are on this call. I won't say who were out yesterday, and look how happy they are. You could be one of them too, doing good work and in a nice day, even if it's not such a nice day. We were reaching out to low turnout voters, our favorite target of opportunity in Harrisburg. The reason we're doing that, we're trying to go to low income areas any place we can, because we think that'll help Fetterman better. And here's Julie and Diane Kupelian, another amazing canvasser, right next to our candidate, Chris DeLuzio. And they look pretty happy. And look, they get the spiffy DeLuzio button for going out there. You can have one of those too if you go out. So there's a lot of rewards to this canvassing, in addition to making the world a better place. So here's our schedule. We'll be doing nearby. We never quite know where we're going to be going because we try to pick out good places that we think will be productive. It most likely will be Harrisburg or York next week. We just won't know exactly. But the big thing is going to be for Chris DeLuzio one of these weekends, the election weekend, November 5th and 6th. We had a great turnout, by the way, in Virginia Beach, and this is basically the analog going north. So we really hope we'll have a good turnout for that because it helps Chris DeLuzio to win that House seat. It also, of course, is there to help Fetterman, and we're going to look for low-income areas there too. So please come canvass with us. All right. So just wind up with this. We're in a tug of war, folks. We need everybody pulling on that rope as best you can, and we thank you for what you're doing. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it back to Lisa. Over.
Thank you. There's a couple of questions in the chat. Do you want to answer those now, Jim, or do you want to wait until later?
I think it might be better to wait till the end and answer them later.
Okay.
That's okay.
Okay, we're going to turn to canvassing to Michelle Hainbach, and I think Julie is on the line on her phone. So after Michelle chats, we'll go to Julie.
If people can arrange to stay on Sunday, maybe come early Saturday, canvass in the afternoon, and then be here for Sunday, that I think will maximize the impact of your time here, and you will have many more conversations with people. Hopefully the weather will be good on both days, but I really recommend that. And I will be, please sign up, and I will be in touch with everybody to, provide more information. So I'm going to head back to hit more doors before it gets dark.
Thank
Hope
you.
to see all of you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you, Julie. So Julie was talking about canvassing for DeLuzio. That's near Pittsburgh. And so she is hoping that some folks will go for the weekend, just like people did for Elaine Luria in Virginia Beach, because it's farther away. So if there's any way for you to spend a weekend canvassing for him, you can get in touch with one of our canvassing leaders. We'll put you in touch with Julie. You can email me. No matter what, we'll get you in touch with her because she's organizing that effort. So Michelle Hainbach.
Hi there, everybody. I was asked to say something inspiring about canvassing, and I was thinking about it. And I want to disabuse people of the notion that there are a few select people who are born canvassers and the rest of us can't do it, because that's not the way it is. I never canvassed until 2017, and I was very nervous at first. And really, if you're on this call today because you care about the future of our democracy and you want to be informed and you want to see good government, you can canvass. You can talk to other people about why their vote is important and what they should do. All you need to do is dedicate some time. And I tell you, it is time, but we will do the rest for you. We help you. We give you training on Thursday night. There's a great app. We teach you how to use it. We'll help you find carpooling if you don't want to drive alone or don't want to drive at all. We'll help you find a canvassing buddy. And when you start out, usually on the first, even now, and I've gone for a couple of years now, I always do the first, 5 to 10 houses with my partner. We go together, we talk as a pair, we talk as we walk away from the house, we go over the minivan app. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? We look at the map together. And then as we get more comfortable, but you don't ever have to do this, we split up and one of us takes one side of the street and one takes the other. And that way we can cover more ground. And people are willing to talk to you, believe it or not. I'm sure there'll be many doors you'll knock on where no one will answer, but there will be doors where people will answer. And people are appreciative that you're coming to talk to them about issues that they care about and reminding them of their vote. You can look up where their voting place is. You can inform them of the hours they can vote. You help them make a plan to vote. And that is just, I think that's the secret. I mean, right now, one of my neighbors said to me 2 nights ago, Michelle, have you got more postcards or letters for me? And I kind of shrugged my shoulders and said, it's getting a little late for that. People are voting already. If you want to make a difference, the thing to do is to canvass. And then later that night, I had an email from her, and when she gave me a date that she can go out into Southwest Pennsylvania, and I was thrilled. I mean, and she's going to bring a friend. I mean, that is really the way that we're going to get people like these 2 women we just heard speak into office. There is nothing else that we can do. We've given money. They don't, I mean, yes, it's helpful. Give money, keep giving money. I don't want to say don't give money. But really what you need to do right now is we need to get the votes out. All right. So I just, that's my deal. And I was also asked though to tell you where we stand with letter writing for Working America. And I'm very pleased to tell you that over 60 volunteers from 31st Street have written over 6,500 letters, which will be mailed on Tuesday. I have a couple other volunteers going out with me. We're going to take big pictures of the back of my car filled with letters before we invade the post office, who won't know what hit them. We set a goal of 5,000 letters, and like 31st Street does, we exceeded our goal. These letters, if you're not familiar with the campaign, go to working class, non-college educated voters in critical battleground states of Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, and Pennsylvania. And then Working America, which is a national nonprofit, has staff on the ground in these places talking to the very same people who are receiving these letters, making sure that these people know which candidates care about the issues that they care about and will put in place policies that will benefit them. So that's been a great project to do up till this time. And now the letter's getting mailed, and now it's time to go canvassing. Next up.
Thanks, Michelle. Thank you. Thank you. So we're going to end in just a couple minutes with just an opportunity for you to ask any more questions of Jim or anyone. But before that, I just wanted to say a couple words. And I was going to talk, because we really want to inspire you to canvass, and I was going to talk about the early days of 31st Street when we were canvassing for Connor Lamb in a special election, and I didn't know what I was doing. And my husband and I went to the Pittsburgh area, and we're walking up and down hills canvassing for Connor Lamb. And it was so exciting because we were seeing signs everywhere for Connor Lamb. And then we met Connor Lamb, and I felt like I was meeting like a Rolling Stone, Mick Jagger, my like hero. But it was just such an amazing thing. And then he won, and we had met him on Skype, like in somebody's kitchen. He had Skyped in. Anyway, it was amazing and it was exciting, and he won, and it just filled us with a sense of power, which was fantastic. But what I actually am going to say very quickly is a conversation I had Friday night on my porch with 3 of my neighbors. And of course, we ended up talking about politics. And of course, we ended up talking about America and Ukraine and just all of the heavy things that are happening. And my neighbors began talking sort of jokingly, but kind of seriously about what countries they could potentially move to if they had to leave America. They were talking about what passports they could get. And one of them had a parent who was born in Canada. She thought maybe she could move to Canada. And I was listening to them, and it was kind of joking, but it was actually serious. And I was realizing as they talked that I had absolutely the opposite impulse. And I said to them, you know, it's kind of amazing. And I kind of don't believe I'm saying this because like I'm a psychologist who like helps people. But I feel like if things go down and things become the nightmare that they were talking about, which I actually don't think is going to happen, but should that happen, like I'm going to fight. Like I'm not moving to another country. This is my country and I believe in it and I'm not going anywhere. So I'm just very glad that you're with me, and I'm not asking you to go to the barricades, but donating and canvassing right now is the barricades, and it's what we can do. And it's our country, and we're here and we have to protect it. So that is my 2 cents. And now for any questions, you can raise your hand or you can put it in the chat. I think there was a couple of questions.
Yes, there was a question about what is the best use of our time on election day? Have we given any thought to that?
I think that for Virginia Wheaton, who lives in Charlottesville, I'd say your best time is to go down to Elaine Luria's district, which is not as far for you as it is for some of us, although it's pretty far, and do canvassing there. I think, you know, there's a voter protection set of things on election day. I personally think, you know, working the polls election day is useful, especially when there's down ballot things that we're trying to do. anyway, that's my view. I think we had a really good experience in Stafford County, for example, last year, working the polls, that I think actually helped get some local people elected down ballot over. Somebody asked about why there was so little money for the guy in Michigan, and I messed up a little bit. Let me say that. I wish not totally, but I had data that he wasn't raising he definitely is a close race, number one. He was not raising much money. He was on the DCCC priority list to provide support to. So we started raising money for him, but then, I realized that actually he was doing pretty well with his cash on hand. So I decided that it really was better to graduate him and try to raise money. I don't regret that people donated to him, and I did too. So, and hopefully he'll win because it's an important race over.
Any other questions? You can just unmute and shout it out if you want, or put your hand up. It's hard to see everybody. Okay, well, if there are no other questions, then we just thank you for attending. This is the last monthly meeting before the election day. So the next time we see you, it will be after the election. And no matter what, we're going to keep going.